Good night and welcome to Mindful Live 326. I'm your host Nathan Springer. Thank you for being here. It is the 9th of January in the year of our Lord 2024. Thank you guys for being here. One day after probably the best day on the calendar year. Probably. Just let that saturate for a bit. But nonetheless, time goes on. Time goes on. Someone was talking about doubles then. You know, I could take a little sweet sauce on my doubles. You're talking $10 doubles there, and I think we're going into roti price kind of talk there. Doubles supposed to be a cheap meal. If you're charging me like a roti, well, we ain't dealing with the doubles anymore. But as we're talking about what you like and don't like on a doubles, I could take sweet sauce. Michelle, no. You're 2 days early. It's close. It's warm, but still 2 days early. But yeah, I could take a little sweet sauce. I think the sauces of a doubles are kind of the point. You know, you could feel for a little difference. Today I could get a little coconut chutney and a little cucumbers. While another day, I just want chana with some pepper, you know, a little spicy. What I cannot take is people that try too much on the chana or try too much on the bara. Like, to me, it's like the canvas on which you build. The bara and the chana are supposed to basically be just well seasoned, but basically plain. I don't want no special seasoning, special touch, unique something inside of my chana and inside my bara. Please, no. No, no, no. I will get the flavors from the other sauces. Shadow Benny and tamarind sauce all the time. Otis says. Michelle says no sweet sauce. Pepper, coconut, chutney, cucumber, roast pepper. You say, Michelle? Michelle is bad punching by chance. Usually when you see doubles men with the roast pepper, that's usually more an exclusive product for those guys who hitting the punching and their taste buds have been singed a long time ago. They could go down on that roast pepper, that scorpion pepper business. For me, I am saying slight. And I'm saying slight with the finger actions and looking to get eye contact with the double man. Yeah, slight, Slight. Because when I say slight, I want you to understand, I mean slight. Like, if you dip the spoon in the pepper last time and you take out my chana with it, that's already slight. Anyway, we could go down on this doubles talk, eh? We could go down on doubles, but be that as it may, Trinidad and our culture. Somebody explained to me why a big 60-something, I believe she in her 60s now, yeah, old woman, sees the need to climb leg over leg over a banister in this place. What are we talking about? It was yesterday, Michelle. What we really talking about here? I feel as a big woman, there are some things you just don't do anymore. Climbing over banisters, I think that's one on the checklist of things as a big woman you just don't do anymore. Thank you very much, Michelle. RL said she did that so people could talk about she and remember she. Relevance to stay in the news cycle. I heard some people say that, but to me, I wonder, like, all right, Like, I've read before where in politics they talk about sexism. There's heavy sexism in politics, they say. So what is Hamilton Smith? Well, Hamilton Smith followed her. She was the leader, to be fair on that. She was the first. She was the trailblazer. But yes, they say there's a lot of sexism in politics, and women are often judged at a different level with different lens than their male compatriots are judged. So a woman speaking too high, her voice is shrill. A woman speaking too low, she sounds too mannish, and you know, those kinds of things. So I would think, as a woman in politics, your actions would have to be more circumspect. Like, do you think a tanty climbing a banister is a positive image politically for anyone in Trinidad and Tobago? I think she don't care, to be honest. Nah, I don't believe she doesn't care. You don't climb a banister in front of the national news at a state funeral for a former prime minister because you don't care. You care about something. Something is going on. She out of politics though, but is she? But is she? She recently, I, I don't know what's going on with Tanti Karazina, because she recently went up for leader of the People's National Movement. She went up for political leader of the PNM. That was last year, ending of last year. So, I mean, how much out of politics would you call that? She has shown recently very serious interest in at least being at the forefront of local politics. She wanted to be there and wanted to show up her former party. I kinda agree with that. If I was to assume what she might be doing there, I'm not 100% sure. If I'm to assume what she might be doing there, I just feel like she didn't foresee the direction this would all turn in. I think in her mind it played out more of a look what the government doing, because at the end of the day it is a state funeral. The state has control over that. It's like a public, at least public sponsored event, and she's claiming that the state victimized her. Now the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Dr. Amory Brown, his version of events is that the family chose the invitees to the auditorium. And I mean, that is I must admit, that is a very good excuse on the part of the state. Let's see if we could just browse the article, what they're saying there. That's a kind of as good an excuse as it gets. Nunez Teixeira Hamilton Smith jumps railing blanked from auditorium. Former President of the Senate, Timothy Hamilton Smith, we know that they jumped the railing there. However, when they approached the doors of SAPA, they were turned away by the ushers. So they jumped the railing for nothing, basically, because they were still turned away by the ushers. Didn't they have a public viewing section at Napa? They had a public viewing section at Napa. They had a public viewing section at SAPA. And that's where they ultimately were sent. They were directed, after they were blanked by the ushers, they were directed to the public viewing and seating area under a white tent on the SAPA compound with screens where members of the public were seated. Dr. Kirk Megu was among those in the public sitting area. Also, there were former ministers Sadiq Bashk and Nizam Baksh. Dr. Brown told the Express that he was disappointed over the incident. He said he had worked closely with the Pandey family up to this morning on the sitting in the auditorium and was disappointed by the grandstand at state funeral. So, according to Dr. Amory Brown, they were working with the family on seating inside the auditorium. And okay, it might be a state funeral, but it's still a funeral. And if it's up to the family, of course the family gets to say who sits inside the auditorium for their loved one's funeral. I would hope. But there's still, I think, some snubbing that may have happened there. And I don't understand why they might be surprised at the snubbing, because if we're being honest, I don't think the Pandays would have invited the upper echelon of the People's National Movement Party to be inside of the auditorium for their father's funeral. I don't think so. But the upper echelon of the PNM were there. I think that would be part of the state apparatus inside there. It being a state funeral, the state could decide, obviously, certain number of people that would obviously have to be on the inside. And what I think Mrs. Nunes Teixeira and Mr. Hamill Smith may have been hoping for is that they would be among those exclusive names that would be the, of course they have to go in regardless of what the family says. I don't know if I could point at a legitimate claim for that belief though. Because you're not the president of the country. You hold no official office. You have no special connection to the deceased. What possible reason would there be for the state to have you as an invitee inside of the auditorium? Every former parliamentarian would not be able to get a seat inside of the auditorium. That's obvious. Why would you think that you would be any different? Asked about the events leading up to the incident, Nunes Teixeira told reporters Mr. Hamill Smith did not get an invitation. He tried in various ways, did not get an invitation. So when we came, everyone was very kind to us, the guards and police. She said my former colleague, who is now the Minister of Foreign Affairs, in my view, ignored me and said I grandstand. I would tell you, he ignored me in a way I would never have done. She said Dr. Amy Brown could have directed someone to help her. She claimed that local government Minister Faris Al-Rawi also saw her and did not do anything. How could you treat a former colleague and a president of the Senate in that manner? And I believe her. I believe her. I believe her when she says that her former colleagues ignored her. She's like, Dr. Brown, Mr. Faris. And they do the two side. I don't know if you all know. I don't know if you all know the meme with the little chubby guy, the little chubby boy, the little chubby fat boy, and he does the little two glance there and then look back down like, I don't know who's that. They hit her one of those. But why are you surprised? Mrs. Nunes Teixeira went up against these people for leadership of the People's National Movement. Do you expect them to be your best buddies now? Didn't you recently launch another party in hopes of defeating them? And now you come and you're not playing this. It's not like you're saying, well, Mr. Pandey and I were so close before. Was Beckles there? I don't know. But Beckles is on the inside of the current PNM. There's still a difference. It's not like she's an outsider. You started another party. And you're there waving, trying to get your links to come in. Like, what? How? It's like back in the days of those clubs, Good Night Mentalists. It's like back in the days of those clubs, the Zen and 51s, and you know there were the committees and all of that and all of that and all of that. It's like, you know, you go on a committee for a rival group, and then you're trying to pull rank in the committee that you left. Like, what are you doing? How do you expect that to work? About former doesn't count. Of course, former doesn't count. Do you know how many former ministers and former parliamentarians we have? We can't just have every former one in. Like, and then to climb the banister, reach down to the ushers, and they tell you, hold up, public viewing is under the white tent. Shame thing. Shame and embarrassment thing, man. I don't see that as a positive. If that was your hope for a public keeping your name inside of the public conversation, I don't know how you're expecting that one to work. I don't know how you're expecting that one to work. 2024 starting out strong. Yeah. 2024 seems like it's going to be quite a year. 2024 seems like it's going to be quite a year. She wanted to seem important. I don't know. I just don't fully know what the Tans was thinking. And from the moment I saw this early morning, and I saw this video of this full-age woman climbing a banister gingerly, I said to myself, yep, the meme smiths are going to deal with her. The memes have been ferocious. Some of them listen. I was happy to see how his funeral was handled, though it felt like old Trinidad again. That kind of more unified feeling, that's what you're talking about? A more unified country feeling you got? Yeah. Great example, the reason why our country is in the state. We put statues in front of equality. Status, I suppose. It's not a real Trini funeral if somebody ain't playing mad. Good point, Spock, man. Good point. I guess Tanti Cars went out there and brought that Trini flavor into the funeral. You know, if it didn't have that little hint of Bacchanal and Lacare to carry on after the funeral, then it may not have been a true Trini funeral. As you said, Michelle, otherwise than that, the funeral was a very smooth and well-organized affair. So you needed that little hint of Bacchanal to really feel the Trininess there. Lucky, where are you from? Trinidad and Tobago, sir. Trinidadian does tote. You can't bad talk me and expect me and you to be friends at your convenience. That's... And listen, me and mind that, you know. I don't mind that at all. Like, I find that's a legitimate stance to have. If me and you fall out and you bad talking me and you don't like me, why should we pretend otherwise? Like, I mean, some might call it bitterness, but it is what it is. When A&R Robinson died, Bass had nothing good to say because he hated the man, according to his own words. And he didn't lie about it even in the man's death. So, and I mean, that's some props, I guess, to the honesty of it. But if you aren't friends, don't pretend you're friends. I felt really sad also, like an era has finally ended with Pandy's death. Well, yeah. Well, maybe it's the cementing of the fact that the era has ended, because he hasn't been prime minister since 2001. He hasn't been in the opposition since what, 2007? So, I mean, his era in politics ended a long time ago, but nonetheless, I understand exactly what you mean. This seems like that final nail to finalize the end of that era. Good night, Tony the Ambassador. Good night, good night. He went out in 2010. in 2010 is when he left opposition leader. Felt like it was for 2010. 2009. Right. Maybe 2009 songs believable in my head. Like, I feel like my memory has an odd number inside there. Like, my memory has an odd number. Yes, Kamala won that year, and then I know that Kamala won that year. She won Prime Minister from the PNM, which was led by Patrick Manning. But she would have been in charge of the UNC before that. She would have had to have taken control of the UNC at some point before that. But yeah, internal elections. And wasn't that 2009? I think that would have been 2009. Yeah, let's jump into another article as we were talking about the price of doubles. And I think this is very pertinent to such things like the price of doubles and inflation in general here as we speak. Labour Minister urges compliance with new minimum wage. And this is, if you're inside of the live every night, you're a live faithful here. A mind folk, a true mind folk. It would sound like deja vu, like we did an article just like this at some point in time, but no, not exactly. Not exactly. It was the Employers Association was previously begging people to comply with minimum wage. Now it's the Labour Minister doing the same thing. Please, people, follow this new minimum wage. And let's get into why. Because, as I've said many times, I think minimum wages, by and large, in the modern sense, don't make sense. In an effort to cope with the increased labor costs stemming from the amended minimum wage and to prevent passing this additional expense on to customers, Pennywise Cosmetics has confirmed to Express Business that they have removed the perk of providing paid lunch hours and 15-minute breaks for employees with less than 4 years of tenure. Michelle asks, "Beg, isn't it law?" Well, you see, here's the thing, Michelle, and that's always the thing with the law. You could make any law you want. People work on incentive. You could write anything you want in the law. You could write that Nathan Springer is not supposed to eat any more meals by law of Trinidad and Tobago. Is that going to make Nathan Springer sit and starve to death? No. All it's going to do is make Nathan Springer a lawbreaker. Laws, by and large, don't really force human action one way or the other. The idea of laws really and truly is supposed to be a way to substantiate the culture that already exists. The law is supposed to be something that makes it more official. Beliefs and morals and codes that are already built into our culture. And if the belief and moral or code isn't built into our culture, the law does not make sense. I have made this point over and over when we look at our public indecency laws that go exactly opposite, polar opposite to all the celebrations of Carnival. Our public indecency laws are exactly opposite, matic boss, to what happens during Carnival. But we aren't going to arrest anyone for Carnival because it's a matter of culture. I not pay people for their lunch hour. What? Well, that's how private sector goes. You are paid based on how much money I make. The government could try their best, but if I am accustomed with a certain profit margin and the government comes in and tells me, by law of government, you must share some more of your profit with your workers, I will say no. And I will just maneuver my business in another direction to prevent that same thing from happening. Speaking to Express Business, under the condition of strict anonymity, a worker at Pennywise voiced concerns over what the company had put in place to handle the $3 increase to the minimum wage that came into effect on January 1st. Before the minimum wage was raised, the company used to pay us for both our lunch and break time, which is an hour and 15 minutes for break. Now that the minimum wage has been raised, they said they will no longer be paying us for that hour of the day, the worker stated. The worker claimed that this development was not well received by other workers as they found it unfair. It is definitely not well received. The workers actually find it unfair. I think that they should have kept on paying us for the hour, which they normally do, because the raise of the minimum wage should have nothing to do with the payment policy they had before, the worker stated. That's people who don't understand business. This is Pennywise and they are always full. That doesn't matter. I run my business with making X amount of profit. The government cannot come in and try and force me to share more of my profit with the workers. It doesn't work. You're going to be chasing me all day, all night, trying to make that happen. They're getting just to that, Michelle. They're getting exactly to that. Express spoke with a director of Pennywise, Dr. Shivam Palladi, who sought to shed some light and justification. Palladi said the company always paid the lunch hour and 15-minute breaks for staff. However, he said with the increase in minimum wage, this policy was amended. It is a perk that we had for the employees. We used to give them paid lunch. I don't think that is a normal thing. I know it is not a normal thing because all of our accountants and labor lawyers, consultants, told us that was not normal, but it was something that we were always doing, Palladi said. But with this minimum wage change, it is a big change. So obviously, it is either we raise our prices or we find ways to minimize the loss, he said. So when we did the calculation, what we actually came up with is we are keeping the benefit for all of the employees that are working with us 4 years and more, which are above 75% of the employees, Palladi said. Now, get this. Workers who are working with them 4 years and over would not be receiving minimum wage very likely. So their salaries would be unaffected. That's why you still get that same perk. All of you coming in now with your minimum wage job, we hired you because we believe you are able to give us $17.50 of work per hour. The government is now forcing us to say you are worth $20.50. But here's the thing. In our business, when we do the math, we do not think you are worth that much. What is your job? Standing around pointing people to what they might be missing? And okay, you are doing a job, you are learning, you are building a skill, but how much should that job be worth? And if you are trying to force that job to be worth more than it actually is, aren't you going to actually just delete the existence of that job? I'm telling you, as an employer, I always say this. I would hire more people if I could pay them less. There are many other jobs, little in-between jobs that you'd give to some other person if you could pay them less. According to calculation by Express Business, the Pennywise staff work 10 hours a day. According to calculation by Express Business, when the minimum wage was $17.50 and they were working 10 hours, a Pennywise employee would make $192.50. Regular pay for the first 8 hours at $17.50 gives you $140. Overtime pay for the next 2 hours, time and a half, gives you $52.50. Giving you that total day pay of $192.50. And now, with the adjusted minimum wage and the amended Pennywise policy, that minimum wage earner will now make $194.75 per day. A pay increase of $2.25. Fred Laddad says maybe some companies should be forced into paying their workers more. Why? Why? Are you worth more? Like, I think some of you need to open some businesses of your own and understand what it is. You open a business of your own, you're doing all of the jobs, you're doing everything. Okay, you might be making some good money. You're interested in hiring someone else, but your business fluctuates in the profit it makes. So you would hire someone, if you could pay them $100 a day, you would hire them. But if you have to pay them more than that, you cannot hire them. How are businesses responding to the new minimum wage? While Pennywise found this amendment to address the minimum wage increase, other businesses said they may have to either let go staff or to let staff go or increase their prices to offset the increase in expenditure. At a community convenience store in Presale, the manager, Sally, said the new increase can lead to one person losing their job at her business place. Understand that. A community convenience store. This is the manager speaking, we, the staff, were discussing amongst ourselves and minimum wage, according to my bosses, would be based on profit. So with this new minimum wage, someone will end up losing and will have to pick up the slack where that is concerned, she said. In my eyes, it's a negative because someone will be losing their job and their responsibilities will be passed on to the remaining staff. So it's more work for just a cut above the previous salary, she said. Lyndon Max says, but that would be foolish because they would have to pay them off. No, you're thinking about someone who has some kind of official job where they signed a contract. But someone who is working in a community convenience store, a mini mart, what they used to call a variety store. A variety store. My variety store would hire as many people as the profit is allowed to pay. If the profit goes down, the amount of people I can hire goes down. It's obvious. If I could find a good mason for $20.50 an hour, and you see, that's just the thing. That's just the thing. A mason cannot be paid $20.50 an hour, even though that's the minimum wage. And that's why the minimum wage isn't really relevant in that sense. The minimum wage is attempting to force employers to determine what their lowest paid workers are worth. That's what the minimum wage is doing. But general skilled workers, they don't make minimum wage. It's based on supply and demand. If there are few masons, well, you're going to have to pay what the market is willing to pay or a little above. Smaller companies should receive additional tax reductions to help mitigate. Fred Laddad, now you're getting to the point. Now you're getting to the point of some of this minimum wage. Let's go on to read a hardware speaking about this. Well, the community convenience store, the workers said that they found this minimum wage to be a loss. They found it to be a negative thing. But let's look at a hardware that was speaking. Trevor Joseph, owner of TNZ Home Improvement Center, also said there will be no retrenchment at any of his store's locations. Asked if the new wage will put a strain on his profit, Joseph said, "We never pay only the minimum wage. No one earns less than $24 hourly plus overtime anyway." That's in the hard way. The Employers Consultative Association, ECA, they said it's a reasonable attempt because none of the employers who are part of their association would really be affected by this because none of their employers pay minimum wage anyway. And think about what you're listening to. What is actually happening with that minimum wage is many of the smallest companies are the companies that would be shut down. Okay, so let's have a real question. What are we doing to strengthen the dollar to carry costs down and value up? Well, I don't know on the government side. I cannot say that answer to you. I don't know. And the problem is we have a dollar that is controlled by the state through their fiscal policy. So the strength of that dollar is determined by government policy, not by what we do. And I can't say what they're doing very clearly to help that situation. Imagine Kiss bread is about $20. If they didn't raise it, you couldn't buy bread. Well, Griffstart, you aren't thinking. You aren't thinking. Haven't you noticed that Kiss bread follows the minimum wage price? Let's look at the minimum wage through the years. The national minimum wage rate was first introduced in Trinidad and Tobago in April 1998. Before 1998, people used to live. The minimum wage in 1998 was $7 an hour. I wonder if you could go back in 1998 and find out the price of a Kiss sandwich loaf, if it was back then, what the comparable price for a sandwich loaf was in 1998. And I wouldn't be surprised if it was somewhere around $7. And what would you know? 2003, $8, 2005, $9, 2011, $12.50, 15, 2015, $15, 2019, $17.50, 2024, $20.50. And nearly every time the minimum wage increases, so does the bread price. Like at some point in time, don't you recognize you're just playing a numbers game? You're not actually getting more money. What is happening as this is increasing, the prices are increasing comparatively, so you aren't actually getting more value in your pocket. And then to the side of that, beside that, the smaller companies cannot keep up. They just cannot. Pennywise could afford to do some maneuvering across all of their companies to brace the hit. Some companies will raise their price to brace the hit, but a community convenience store would have to let go a worker. And maybe that one worker that was let go is going to make the strain on the other workers just too much to actually effectively run the business. And who knows, by the next year, one community convenience store is shut down and turned into another Chinese grocery. And we wonder, how is this happening? But cost of living was increasing anyway, with or without an addition to the minimum wage. How could we say that when the minimum wage has been increasing? Like, that's hard to even determine because we have had the minimum wage increasing with it. And here's the thing. Wages, just a moment, Lyndon Mac. Here's the thing. Wages increase without minimum wage increasing. In 1998, there were masons and they didn't get minimum wage in 1998. In 2024, they are masons and they don't get minimum wage in 2024. Their pay increased between 1998 and 2024, and the government didn't mandate it. So, would it make more sense to have a market-based increase of wages based on supply and demand? If there's a large supply and a low demand for your skill, there would be a very low pay for it. And what it would encourage you to do is go find a skill that there's a low supply in and a high demand for, go learn that skill, and you'd get more money. Simple as. But the individual can help themselves do home gardens, mine chickens for meat and eggs, etc. A lot of that. Pennywise workers going and get offended. Pennywise workers getting offended here. Well, Pennywise workers start off on a default setting of offended. The market dictated company costs of doing business to increase. I suppose it works both ways. Yeah, it does. Pay increases without the minimum wage. You don't need the minimum wage to increase people's pay. That's not totally necessary. That's not a true thing. So what do we do with all this information? Well, I hope in the future you use it wisely. And when a government comes promising you that they're going to raise the minimum wage to $30 to help the poor people, you say this doesn't make sense. And this government is lying to me. That's what I hope we do with the information. You could recognize when someone is being honest and upfront with you. And you could recognize when someone is being dishonest with you. And you could recognize, then go to work. No, maybe you could try to open a new business. Try to get more entrepreneurial. Understand the workings and dynamics of that side of life. Remove ourselves from the primary producer colonial mindset where we are just called to work for a multinational massive corporation where we have no idea what the final goal is. We're just a cog in the wheel working for massa. And the public service is nearly the same thing. What do you do on a daily basis? What is the purpose of what you do? You don't really know. You're just doing doohickeys and doodas when the day comes because someone above you tells you to do it. And that kind of system removes value and earning away from duty. You don't, and I regularly complain about this. It's not a fresh thing I'm complaining about. So that's why in the public service, what is the worth of a day's labor for the average public servant? What are you doing when the day comes? We don't know what we should pay you. Like the doubles vendors we were talking about. We know what we should pay the doubles vendor. Okay, is you walk to the doubles vendor, you taste his doubles, he tells you $7. Does it taste like it's worth $7? If it doesn't taste like it's worth $7, well, no one will buy the doubles man's doubles, and he will make $0 and he will bust, and that would be what he's worth. If you make good doubles and your doubles is $7 and people buy doubles from you all day, you may be making 7 figures at the end of the year. And that's what you're worth because your doubles are worth that much. But public service. And who will spend in these new businesses? The middle class is dying. The point of the businesses are to spend in the businesses, Michelle. That's the whole point of it. The point of it is to create that middle class that is dying. The middle class is dying, and part of it is government policy, and the state isn't running everything as it should. But I think part of it is that Trinidadians have the get a government work, and the government will see about you for too much. Like, that's why the middle class is dying. There isn't the small businessman. There isn't enough of them. Everyone wants to just be employed and collect the salary. That might be why the middle class is dying. We can't all have a government work. And wanting a government work to carry you into the middle class might start to be too dreamy. They are way more than you think. No, Fred lad dead. I think I have a reasonable idea how many there are. Maybe a government work should not put you squarely in the middle class. Maybe you should be able to supply something on the free market in order to be able to make it to middle class and above. But we just said the small businesses closing because of the increase in salaries. Yep, I did say that. And that's what we have to work against. And I think we have a population that allows for the minimum wage to go from $7 in 98 to $20 in 2024 because we have a population of employees. The employees always think increasing the minimum wage is a better thing. If we had a population of employers, people who are interested in trying to get people to work for them, trying to put a service or a product out into the market, you'd have much more people when the discussion about minimum wage comes up, much more people would be able to respond reasonably instead of the whole crowd of Trinis in chorus saying, yes, $30 minimum wage, like the OWTU was proposing. And a lot of Trinis are behind that. Yes, $30 minimum wage. This $20, $20.50 is an insult to the poor people. How your poor people survive on that? Government people don't make as much money. A clerical makes like 5K or less. Which clerical is that? Which level of clerical is that? And just but Michelle, I don't doubt you, eh? Something I used to comment on when my generation was getting into that level. No sooner the minimum wage went up, so did everything else go back. So back to square one. Correct, Trini Mike. Many of the millennials of my age, when they were getting into that age group, a lot of my generation working in office jobs, I have recognized, are just working for the Van Heusen fitted pants and fitted shirt and to buy lunch every day. Nah. RL, so only rich people deserve an education. Well, Michelle, I could understand what RL says there because the cost of education or cost of education makes the decision more serious. If it's free, you go to university and learn lesbian dance therapy. But if there's a cost, you look at it and say, well, I cannot earn anything for that, so I don't go learn it. And further education, to me, is not necessary for every human being. And I think the idea that it is a lie that was spread in the modern world. And it was spread to me personally by some of those leftists because they want everyone in university to be indoctrinated and all of that. But it's truly not true. Everyone does not need to attend higher education. Specific people for specific duties may need it. But there are many people who deserve to go and couldn't afford it, me being one. As RL says, deserve is a strange word, eh? Deserve is a strange word. Now, so people can't dream? Yes, people can dream. But the problem with if the government paid everyone to do whatever they dreamed of doing, how many people do you know dreamed of being musicians or dreamed of being artists? And many of them are garbage at it. If the government just paid everyone to do what they dreamed, wouldn't there be a lot of useless musicians and artists just making useless music and art out there? It's not just about the dream. It's about where the dream intersects with reasonable reality. So yes, you can dream, but your dream needs to reasonably intersect with reality. Access is important for people to have similar access to education. Well, yes, yes. I'm not speaking about government specifically. The poor people who get gate don't usually waste it. And I'm not saying they waste it. That's not what I'm saying. But I am saying that some people don't put as much effort on the direction they head into university because they don't have to pay for it. And you end up with a whole lot of management degrees and nowhere for them to manage. The problem is the rich who benefit from programs meant for the poor. I agree the rich shouldn't benefit from it and the rich should pay. I agree. And I also agree on scholarships and increase the number of scholarships. Greatly increase the number of scholarships so that anyone who is able and has a dream that intersects with reality, they're able and they have a dream that intersects with reality, that great, as a society we get behind them. But just anyone with any dream, I'm sorry, as a society that's not our job. Maybe your parents could try to follow your every dream. University is and will always be a financial sacrifice. Thank God gate has ended. I still paying loan to this day for my degree. Is there a means test now to help with that? Yes, there is a means test now. As far as I know, the wealthy have actually been the ones who abuse the system of gate the most. I am actually not 100% sure about that, Fred Ladded. I'm not 100% sure about that. If I were to go through the years of university that I know, and I were to divide the children I knew that went to university into quartiles, the top, the second, the third, and the fourth, and I look at the top, the wealthiest quarter of people who went to university, I think they're nearly all doing something that required higher education. How many people do you know that were wealthy, went to university, and are now doing things that had zero to do with higher education? So sometimes we have an envious Marxist default hatred for wealthy people, which I don't think is healthy. And we always think anybody who has more, who is wealthier, who has done more, has always done something nefarious, or they're not good, or it's not always so. They have places in society already in family business. And by the way, Michelle, I am not arguing that wealthy people should have access to those things necessarily. This is on another topic. I think means test for those things makes sense. Don't give wealthy people when they already have. That does not make sense, one. And two, I prefer more of a scholarship angle where the degrees that require more people, you have scholarships in it. I've been a clerical assistant at university for over a year in admissions. And what have you noticed about wealthy people? That you would say they're wasting gate. You think the wealthiest people are the ones who drop out the most and have the least degrees? Because the statistics wouldn't bear that out as reality. Now, if you're telling me, Michelle, that if I use myself as an example, I was a very late bloomer due to abusive home. I went to school after, and I understand those things. And that's why I agree with scholarships. I think scholarships are a great thing. I think scholarships are a great thing. And they help in those exact changing degrees. Well, yeah, that happens. And they help in those exact areas. The people who don't know. That's why I said, Michelle, expand the number of scholarships. If you graduated, if you ended up top 3, then scholarship shouldn't have been outside of the realm of reality. Most wealthy people, kids don't even attend university down here. Denzel Felix says over on Instagram. Yeah, that's why I'm not sure I totally agree with Fred Ladet there. Like, I understand a lot of wealthy people abuse some systems and all of that, but on the university side of it, I find, generally speaking, they are some of the ones that finish more. Our country is so wealthy to have a lot of people thinking free college is a right. I love TNT. Well, that comes filtering down, I think, from the United States, where they have that as a popular statement that free university should be a human right. And I don't agree with that. I don't even think necessarily free education, public education, should be a human right necessarily. I don't think so. Hello from Guatemala. Hello there, Mr. Guatemalan. I could do it a scholarship to Mindful University. Well, apply. We'll see how it goes, Reeve. We'll see how it goes. I am John by name. Hi, John. Hey, let me read this story that I just, these stories give me a little chip in my step sometimes. Claxton Bay homeowner opens fire at intruders. 3 bandits were sent running in fear for their lives after a homeowner opened fire on them during a home invasion in Claxton Bay on Sunday morning. A 32-year-old man, a hardware director, had secured his home around 10 p.m. on Saturday and went to bed. However, around 5:05 a.m., his father alerted him to intruders who were trying to enter the upper floor of the house. Upon viewing the camera surveillance on his cell phone, the man saw 3 men dressed in white and black clothing with face masks and gloves entering the upper floor through the rear door. Armed with his licensed Glock 43X pistol, the businessman fired 4 rounds at the intruders, who ran off. Police believe the bandits gained access inside the house by prying open the rear door on the southern side. It was not clear if any of the suspects were injured. Where are you located, friend? In Trinidad. I'm in Trinidad. And Michelle, in that case, in your case there, what happens oftentimes like that is people end up in the work world and then go to school. And I think that may actually be better. What we have seen is university price because of free university. Bear in mind, it's not free, it's government paying for it. Government promising to pay for anyone. And because of that, universities skyrocket their price. The idea was supposed to be that you can go to work and your work can pay for your studies and you work and study. And if you're one that fell through some of those cracks like you were talking about, Michelle, that may have been your route in the future. It is a right to aspire to, but it is based on the economic standing of a country. Empty the clip, reload, and knock it again. Knock it and then knock it again, and white leather. But the man only released 4. He only released 4. Well, you see, Michelle, that drowning debt thing started because of the free education thing in the first place. The universities skyrocketed their price. Now, you could talk about GATE in that sense, but then also bear in mind, GATE isn't free in totality. The state is paying for GATE. So we get GATE and then, okay, well, we no longer have a fuel subsidy. Okay, well, the public servants are asking for a raise and they cannot get that raise. Okay, well, the electricity subsidy may be cutting out just now. Okay, well, different ministries cannot get the same amount of money that they did. There are opportunity costs to this. Money isn't, money has limits. It isn't infinite. So you use some here, you cannot use some in the other direction. And you ask yourself, is it best for our country to use all of the money in educating people in degrees that many of them would not use? I'm not saying everyone who used GATE didn't use it properly. I benefited from GATE. My wife benefited from it. Nearly everyone in my circle benefited from GATE, and I'm very grateful for it too. But we can't allow our gratitude in it working for us to make us blind to the fact that there are many negatives to it also. Gate should have been for some degrees, not all. I agree. Right now, it's mismanagement we are paying for. We should never have been in this position. But we are. The problem is directing people to degrees that the country needs. Correct. I agree with that. All right, people. I think that's about all I have for tonight. And we ain't even started to talk about the brain drain yet. Well, yeah, that's legit. And what you tend to find is the people who are serious about going in a specific direction. Not the people who, and I mean this with no insult, not the people who are just going with the flow. All right, they tell me choose subjects for Form 4, so I just choose subjects. What are you doing after Form 5? Well, all my friends go in Form 6, so I go in Form 6 too. All right, Form 6 done. What are you doing now? Well, all my friends go in UE, so I go in UE too. People like that, they're going to stay in Trinidad very likely. Someone, sounds bad, but you know what I mean. Someone who is very pointed in what they're aiming for. Okay, I know I want to aim at engineering. I want to aim at this specific type of engineering. Very likely when they reach to their goal, very often so we pay for all and we keep the mediocre and lose the best. One would have no choice but to leave. Between limited jobs and nepotism makes it hard. Not only that, but now if I was the management student who should have done management, I am the person who actually studies, dives in deep, pays attention, researches this. I am the real management person. If there was no free education, I would have sacrificed, worked, and gone to evening classes to get this management degree. I am that person. Now, I am just one of the other 50,000 people with a management degree. As skillful as I am with this degree, if I want to maximize it, I got to leave. While if the system was set up as such that only the people who really wanted to, the people who were really interested in it, were the only people who got in, it would have filtered out some of that. Who knows, that might have helped the brain drain too. All right, people, that's all I have for now. Any further questions or comments inside of the live? If banks were a little more flexible with business loans and access to US entrepreneurship would be easier. 100%. US dollar difficulty is stifling us here in Trinidad and Tobago. That's a fact. If we could have just brought back those VTM cards that you could fill whenever you want, that Republic Bank had, a whole different world that we're living. That's a fact. All right, if there are no further questions or comments, that's all I have for now. I am Nathan Springer. This is the Mindful Live. It was brought to you by Mindful Education, Mindful with 2Ls_education if you're looking for us over on Instagram. It's the educational institution that I run. We offer learning pods, which are homeschool style classes from preschool stages all the way up to CXE, small in-person classes where you can build that familiarity and that comfort in learning. We also offer in-person one-on-one tutoring for most CXE and CAPE subjects. If you think you need that little added attention, you're repeating, or you know someone who is doing it for the first time and they just need that little push over the edge, well, contact us and we'll get that tutor out to you. But favoritism has a lot to play. Fact, US delimiting EC now. Yikes. I just jumped over the railing to join your live. Oh gosh, Mashi. Oh gosh. Like, panties. You all aren't supposed to be jumping over railings. It don't look right. It don't look right. All right, people. I hope you're educated, informed, or entertained. I am Nathan Spring, and I will see you guys again for the next Mindful Live tomorrow evening, starting around that 9:30 p.m. Until then, peace. Hold it down.